Today on BRStv, we're going to show everyone how to survive a power outage. Last week, we released a video on avoiding the top 10 tank disasters, with number 10 being lost power, and literally 4 hours later, a huge storm blows through the Minneapolis area and wipes out power to over 500,000 people, including many of our homes and the warehouse. That was Friday. It's Monday now, and 60,000 people are still without power. Our warehouse just came back on this morning. Right after the storm, most of us were out cleaning up the damage and immediate danger posed by downed trees, ripped up siding, flooding, and some disturbing but also impressive damage caused by the storm. All of these images were taken by members of our team. After dealing with the bigger emergencies, it's time to think about some of the more sobering consequences of a power outage. A storm like this may result in a short temporary outage, but in many cases, widespread downed lines means it will be days before you have power. Last night, about half of the team reported power outages, and half a dozen tanks at the office were left without power as well. Many of the tanks already have solutions for this type of thing in place because all of the life support systems on our tanks require power. A prolonged outage could result in something really devastating, considering the time, effort, and money put into our tanks. For many of us, our fish have been with us for years, so it could also be the loss of a family pet or friend. For instance, I won these two naked clowns at an IMAC aquarium show in Chicago 6 or 7 years ago. They flew home in my lap, and they've been in 4 or 5 tanks since. This golden dwarf moray eel has also been with me a long time as well. It'd be really depressing to lose any of them. Today we're going to cover the primary concerns with outages and how to deal with both long and short-term power outages. When most people think about power outages, they think generators, but this might not be the best solution in most cases. A really high percentage of power outages are what I would consider short-term, and even the long-term outages have more immediate short-term needs. Luckily, if we consider those immediate needs, the tank can be pretty stable for a surprisingly long period of time. Even though we were without power for 3 days, we managed to not lose a single fish in any of the tanks. I think the first step in dealing with a power outage is knowing it happened. If it happens while you're at work, out with friends, or on a vacation, it's likely you might not know you lost power. Last week I mentioned that aquarium controllers don't do a very good job of notifying you about these types of things. I have to admit I was wrong, and our viewers were quick to point it out. The Apex absolutely has the ability to notify you via email or text message if the power goes out. You will have to put your Apex controller, modem, and router on a UPS for that function to work. However, the things that made the power go out are also the things that can make the internet go down as well, so this isn't a complete solution. This is where sites like reeftronics.net come in. This site helps you set up a system that pings your controller on a frequent basis. If the communication with your controller is disconnected for a prolonged period of time, the system will contact you and let you know. Once you've identified there is an outage, the number one thing to consider is gas exchange. All of your fish and many other organisms consume oxygen and emit carbon dioxide as part of their metabolic process. The excess carbon dioxide is released and new oxygen is introduced as part of a gas exchange that happens when water circulates throughout the tank and breaks the surface tension of the water, which exposes it to fresh air. Soon as the power goes out, this gas exchange basically comes to a halt. The oxygen supply begins depleting, carbon dioxide levels begin rising, and the pH starts its descent. How fast this happens is largely dependent upon the amount of livestock you have. Some people may be able to go for a day or so without issues, and others might only be able to go a couple of hours. Either way, once things begin dying, it can happen rather fast, and you can lose the whole tank. An air stone and the resulting bubbles can help to some degree, and a good option if you have no other. There are some battery-operated air pumps that turn on if power is disrupted, which is cheap and convenient. However, air pumps don't circulate water within the tank very well. A much better option is a Powerhead capable of keeping most of the tank circulating and breaking the surface of the water. As long as the surface of the water is breaking, there should be adequate gas exchange, and in most cases this is going to be much more effective than an air stone. More or less, there are 4 ways to power a Powerhead during an outage. The best types are going to turn on immediately if there is an outage, which means you don't have to be there to recognize the outage and turn it on. Since 2/3 of our day is spent either at work and sleeping, and everything bad seems to happen while we're on vacation, having something automatic is pretty critical. Most of the inexpensive automatic options are going to be a battery backup of some type. One of the easiest to implement solutions is a simple UPS battery backup like the type commonly used for computers. All you need to do is plug in a single low wattage power head into it, and if the power goes out, it will keep the tank going. The larger the UPS, the better. I'd get the biggest one you can. A large one can often keep a small pump like this going for a fairly long time, but typically around 6 to 12 hours, which is enough to cover most common outages or give you enough time to start working on a longer-term solution. Some DC-driven pumps like the Vortex have a battery backup option, which I think is surprisingly cheap considering the cost of the pumps. A single one of these can run an MP10 for up to 72 hours, and you can daisy chain them together for longer run times. These DC pumps get much longer run times than a UPS system because they don't have to run an inverter to switch the battery power back to AC for standard power heads. This is how we saved all the tanks this weekend. Every tank had one of these running on it, and we didn't have a single casualty. Sometimes I doubt the manufacturer's claims about their products, and in this case, I wasn't really sure if it would really last 72 hours. But it actually outperformed that by a significant margin. The battery indicator showed a third full, and the pump was still going 3 days later. Tunes also sells an item called a safety connector for their controllable DC-driven pumps. This allows you to purchase your own battery and hook it up to the pump yourself. This will also automatically detect the outage and turn the pump on for you. What I really like about this option is you can swap batteries as needed. Since batteries are a commodity item, you can get a pretty large one at a very low cost. Honestly, if you spent money on the Vortex or Tunes controllable pumps and haven't considered their battery backup solutions, do it now. This isn't something you buy when you need it. It requires some forethought, so it's there when you do. Same goes for standard AC power heads. If you don't have any power outage solution, go out and get one right now. If you're lucky enough to have a micro center or a similar store in your area, this is probably one of the cheapest and easiest places to get one. Next thing I'd get is a small inverter. These are often $20 to $30 at a Walmart, Target, or auto parts store, and they work by attaching them to your car battery to provide power. This is not only great if other solutions are out of your budget, but can be used for longer-term power outages as well, as long as you don't mind running your car frequently to keep the battery charged. Some newer SUVs and trucks have an inverter built in with outlets in the beds or other areas of the vehicle. Battery backups and inverters will get you through most of the short-term power outages and cover you from a vast majority of power-related issues. But again, they only work if you have them already set up, so do it before you need it. Now it's time to start thinking a bit more about longer-term outages. These are more rare and planning for them can be more expensive. As power outages get prolonged, you need to start thinking more about temperature. The fish and corals can survive in a wide range of temperatures, but it's increasingly stressful to be out of their ideal range for prolonged periods of time, and they can certainly tolerate colder water better than hot. Heaters and chillers require a lot of power, so your only real option is a generator or large inverter. For the most part, there are two types of generators to consider: a standalone unit you have to start manually, or an automatic version hooked up to your home's power grid. While the second option is nice because your whole home has power, they're obviously expensive to install. The standalone units are nice as well, but keep in mind that a generator is only a good solution if you're there to start it, and it actually runs because you maintain it well. For that reason, I still suggest implementing some type of battery backup solution. If there's one takeaway from this that's more important than any other, it's do something about this today. As in, go out right now and purchase a solution. It's really easy to forget about this type of thing or ignore it until it's an issue. Problem is, when it's an issue for you, it's also an issue for 500,000 other people as well. So every generator and inverter in the state is purchased within the first 15 minutes. So at minimum, go out and buy a $20 to $30 inverter today. If you have a few extra bucks laying around, get a large computer UPS. For longer term solutions, order a small Tunes or Vortex pump and their battery backup solution. If you already own a controllable DC Tunes or Vortex, it's just silly to not order their backup solutions today. On a final note, if you live in an area where it gets extremely cold or hot and it fits inside your budget, go get a generator as well. Coming up next week, we're starting a new series on coral propagation. If you've ever thought about growing corals for profit, trading, or fun, you won't want to miss it. If you haven't already, start jamming on that subscribe button. This week's question of the week is, if you lost power today, would your tank survive? Immortalize your thoughts in the comments area below. If you could care less about any of that stuff and just want to watch a couple other videos, click on any one of these, and thank you for watching BRStv.